leap, and the net will appear. Midwest morning, October snowfall. She packed the Chevrolet and she brushed the freeway. She got a great big dream and a history of playing small. And everybody seems to think that she'll be back before Christmas Day. Well, she hit that highway with every ounce of faith that she could summon. When courage finally comes, you never see it coming, right out of nowhere. You open your heart, and that changes everything, and you're going somewhere. And all you need to know is that you're free to go. Summer nights, the soft smell of seashore, all the deadheads dancing on the beach. He's got a 10-year tan and his own little junk story says, some people got a lot to prove and that's the way I used to be. Well, now I'm just an old hippie with a half a dozen PhDs. Some choices hold you down, some chances set you free, right out of nowhere. You open your heart and let go of everything, and you're going somewhere. And all you need to know is that you're free to go. And you dream, and the way will be clear. Pray and the angels will hear. Leap and the net will appear. Right out of nowhere, you open your heart, believe in everything, and you're going somewhere. And all you need to know is that you're free, right out of nowhere. You open your heart, have faith in everything, and you're going somewhere. And all you need to know is that you're free to go.
Today we come together as a community, as humans here on this earth, knowing that we are all spirits as well. We are spirits of that one God, that one who birthed us, who brought us into being. So just take that in, feel that you are a special, special child of God, each and every one of you. And you are all perfect just as you are. For God did not make any mistakes. He made each and every one of us for our own purpose. And we are living that on this earth right now. So know that you are special. Know that you are needed. know that you are part of the one and part of each and every one of us as we are connected in that way. So in knowing this, we are blessed to be here together as community, to have this time to honor our God, to have this time to be together. And we bless each and every person here, each and every person who could not make it today, and those who choose to just be in that God spirit in other ways, in a mosque, in a temple, in a cathedral, on a mountaintop, or sitting at home. Each and every person has their own way of worshiping, and we honor each and every path. We are also blessed to have so many wonderful people in this community to bring this service together each Sunday. All of our volunteers, our practitioners, our music, our AV people, our hospitality, our ushers. We thank them all, each and every person who does whatever it is it takes to put everything together on a Sunday morning. So for all of this and the beautiful springtime that is coming forward, and the blossoming of all the flowers, beautiful trees, everything is starting to come to life in spring. For all of that and so much more, we are so very blessed as we say together, and so it is. Okay, today I have some words of wisdom, and I want you to really listen to these because they're really important, okay? The first one I have is from Marianne Williamson. Children are happy because they don't have a file in their minds called all the things that could go wrong. Isn't that the truth? Second one, very important as well, from Evan Rausch. He's a marketing executive. Other people's lives seem better than yours because you're comparing their director's cuts with your behind the scenes. I thought that was excellent, especially as we look at Facebook many times. And then this from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. If you could see the object of your fear until you really understand it, it would no longer exert any effect on you. You can do this to the degree where you become aware that you are divinely guided and protected, and establish your understanding of this in a definite way.
Our theme for the month of April is the power of vulnerability. I love this title because we have a tendency to think of vulnerability as a weakness. And the truth is, when we step into vulnerability and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we're powerful. We're more powerful than we would be otherwise. And so we're going to take a little bit of a look at this today. There are a couple things that create these cracks and canyons that we talk about, things that get in the way of us just showing up and allowing ourselves to be real. Fear, uncertainty, and comparison are three of the biggest culprits. You see, we come into this life and we set the intention to show up and express and be who we are. Voices came. And the voices tell us, don't do that. Be more like this person. Don't talk so much. You're not that far. Of voices. And what happens with that is that starts to reel us into that space of limitation and fearfulness, because I don't want to have those comments. I don't want to have that critiquing. So therefore, maybe I'll monitor it myself and see how that's going to work. So what we do is we have that tendency to monitor ourselves and to kind of reel that in on our own. And now we've just made up a a story about who we get to be and how we get to be. And so what we're looking at now is let's just be us. Let's just be vulnerable. Let's just make mistakes and let the world see them. I had some great role models in my life that helped me to see this. My mother was one of the best. We could laugh at anything, including ourselves, all the time. However, most of the time we laughed at Dad. Because he just did stuff in his manner of not trying to look like he was doing something maybe stupid or whatever. My mom and I just found it hysterical 90% of the time. So let's look at that. Let's look at what we can do and what are the steps that we can take and how we can avoid some of these things. We teach in this philosophy that there is something within us that has never been affected, never touched by fear and uncertainty and comparison. That very divinity within us is that thing, is that part of us. This is the home where Spirit lives. This is the individualized expression of God in us and through us. And so let's embrace that, and let's look at that this week and see how that can support us. We want to deepen in that expression of who we are. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, gives us this quote: "All human endeavor is an attempt to get back to first principles, to find such an inward wholeness that all sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty vanishes." Wow. All we need to do is get in touch with self. That's what we're doing. That's what we're here for. We're reminded to be true to ourselves, to discover that the inward wholeness melts away doubt and uncertainty. We are here on planet Earth to experience and express all we can as ourselves. Each day we have a multitude of opportunities to do this. And this week I encourage you, as you go through the week and you reflect on your day and the things that have happened, is to take a look at the times when you might have reeled it in, when you might have tempered it down just a little bit, when you might have withheld, when you could have expressed. What happens when we are kind of managing this expression of who we are is we begin to become more stressful because there's a fear of being accepted. And when we do this, we don't have the energy to support ourselves, and we certainly don't have the energy to support others. We just need to take the time, loving self, loving others, and find space for those peaceful, quiet moments. So I read a little blurb about a gentleman. His name is Brett Goldstein. You may know of him. He is an English actor, and he was hired years ago as a writer for the Apple TV series Ted Lasso. When Brett was working on the script, and he was writing about the character Roy Kent, what was going on in his mind at the time was, I could do this. I could be this guy. I could play this part. It rang true to him so deeply and was so crystal clear that he went home, he made a video, he submitted it to the producers, and he got hired to play the part of Roy Kent. That's how it works. We get an idea. We are prompted to action. We take action, and it manifests. How amazing is that? Brett, by the way, has won 2 Emmys for his performance as Roy Kent in this particular series. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And I will tell you, the language is atrocious. And I love every second of it. It is just the positive impact, the challenges they deal with, and they really address the human nature and allow others and encourage others to be authentic. What a great idea. What a great idea. Now, back to what Brett was thinking and feeling as he was writing this script, and what came up for him was that idea that he could do this. I remember sitting in a room similar to this one many, many, many years ago, listening to a minister up in front of a group of people in the Science of Mind philosophy, and what kept popping in my head was, well, I could do that. And then I shut it down, and then it'd pop up again. I could do that, and then I'd shut it down. And eventually, I stopped trying to shut it down, and I listened. I think one of the best things we can pray for when you're looking at spiritual mind treatment and what's going on in your life is this one beautiful thing. It's called clarity. Clarity. When I am looking at something and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I could do that, if I pray for clarity, the path for me is going to become crystallized. It's going to become clear to me to know exactly what to do and how to do it. When we're in that place where we don't know what to do, we don't know how we feel, we don't know what's going on, we don't know why this is happening, clarity is going to bring that forth for us. What a concept. I just think that's such a great idea. This is how we discover what we truly want and what the divine has in store for us. Clarity. How beautiful. And once we get that, once we get a hold of that, then everything starts to unfold in our favor. I have a quote from Audre Lorde that says, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." So the first part of this process that we're looking at today is fear. And I love how she says, my strength for my vision. She doesn't say, I tap into my power so I can tell everybody what to do. She's talking about internalizing this and what does it mean to her. You see, fear is a huge barrier for vulnerability. It can actually feel like a giant canyon that's stretched out in front of us, and we have no way to cross over. We're not sure what to do. We're not sure how to get where we need to be. Each and every one of us, however, because we are unique, individualized expressions of the one, each one of us expresses and experiences fear differently. Did you ever talk to someone and say, oh, you don't have to be fearful, or you don't have to be afraid, and they're like, I'm not afraid. I wasn't feeling fear. We actually get upset when someone tries to accuse us of that, so we want to be careful with that. What comes with fear oftentimes is shame and blame. Those are how we demonstrate fear sometimes. Fear can be a helpful emotion. It can shed light on the areas of our lives that require a closer look. If I'm feeling hesitant, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I'm feeling like I'm not really courageous enough to take this next step, what is that telling me about me? What's going on? Take the time, take the moment and investigate. I appreciate, again, I think I said this a second ago, her language about her strength and her vision, and I want us to hold on to that this week. What's in this for me? What is coming forth for me? Because a lot of times what happens for me is I'm considering something else outside of me. Something that's happening with a family member, someone who's come to me for prayer support. And I believe that I'm going into prayer and I'm going into that process for them. And in that scenario, something shows up that's a reflection of me. And practitioners are trained, and our ministers as well, to handle this, because what we know is when we step into prayer on your behalf, what shows up first is our own resistance. So what can I do to move past that so that I can truly be in support of those around me? Krishnamurti gives us this quote. It is not that you must be free from fear. The moment you try to free yourself from fear, you create a resistance against it. What is needed, rather than running away or controlling or suppressing or any other resistance, is understanding fear. Watch it. learn about it. Come directly into contact with it and learn from it. Don't you like to know what's going to happen next? Don't you have that sense that you just want to know? I mean, even reading a book, watching a movie, aren't you guessing what's going to happen? Who's the real bad guy? Who's the one who really pulled off whatever it is we're thinking and talking? We want to know. We want to know. When I first started training 100 years ago in corporate America, one of the challenges I had is I wanted to come into the classroom, I wanted to freelance it, I wanted to talk about this and then talk about this, and I had people in the room who needed to know what page I was on in their workbook, what was I going to talk about next. It's a comfort zone for us to know what's going to happen. Some of us want a plan. Some of us want a plan and a backup plan and a plan to back up that backup plan. Just in case the first three don't work, we want another plan. And my life doesn't work that way, and if yours does, well, okay, good for you. But I'm good at being spontaneous, so much so that I got into a conversation with someone just the other day, and I was talking about something I'm planning on doing that could be considered risky. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as something different. I'm going to do something different. And the individual on the phone with me kept saying, well, then what? Well, what if that doesn't work? Well, then what? Well, then what if that doesn't work? And finally I said, okay, you know what? All I know right now is what Spirit is guiding me to do right here. That's my first step. After I take my first step, I'm absolutely certain God will tell me what to do next. But for you to be asking me all these questions right now, I don't have that answer. I know many of you in the room today, and maybe of you possibly online, remember just a few years ago, we had a building over on Parker Road, and we sold it. And we no sooner announced that we were selling the building till 99% of the community members were coming to me saying, where are we moving to? Where are we moving to? Do we have a new address? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? And I remember standing in front of the community and saying, God hasn't given me our 2 address yet, so chill, out. Well, guess what God gave us instead of a 2 address? God gave us the experience and the opportunity to experience a pandemic. God didn't give us the pandemic, but we had the opportunity. And then from there, we were out there in the online world for, it seemed like, ages, and then we came back together, and then we were at Heather Gardens for a while, and then we were over at the Unity of Denver for a little while, and now we're in this space, and what I know absolutely, without doubt, that we moved into every one of these locations when we were ready. And we didn't even know about the addresses until we were ready to move, to relocate. So back to that comment that I hear from time to time, when is New Dawn going to start having Sunday morning services? When we're ready. And Spirit lets us know where that's going to happen and how that's going to happen. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to fear. It's only when these things stop us in our tracks that it becomes challenging for us, that it becomes difficult for us. If we can just live in the place of being curious and moving in the ways that are in alignment with the truth of who we are, we can accomplish so much. We don't even have to question it. What we'll find, though, is we may find cracks that bring up the uncertainty. We may find an opportunity to be more aware of what's going on. And we may recognize that thing, that power, that presence behind all things and how that supports us. Awareness of all of this helps us open the door, and it invites us to step through. That feels so good to me. That tells me that no matter what I do and no matter how I do it, I'm supported by that power, by that presence. Our neighborhood friend, Mr. Rogers, shares this quote with us. You rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices. And hopefully, your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are. Choose for you. Don't choose for the people outside of you. Choose for you. When we choose on behalf of ourselves, we're coming from that center, that core being within us, that place where our true self lives, where we really know who we are and how we are. And in that space, there's no need for comparison. Daniel Chappell, who is the author of the book Beyond the Clouds, offers a perfect concept about comparison, and I love this. He says in this little piece in his book, let's say I give you 2 novels, and I tell you to read both novels, and I ask you to compare the circumstances of these 2 novels and of each protagonist and tell me which one is better. And you would look at me and say, you are nuts. You are nuts. And here's what else you would say. You would say, these characters have been forged in 2 different worlds. They have grown up and developed around different people. They each have their own inherent purposes, but they're traveling different paths, and they'll traverse their paths at different speeds. Yeah. Your life is your novel. Stop comparing. Because as soon as you go to show up anywhere and you move into that place of comparison, the first thing that happens is part of you shuts down. And you don't share, and you don't open up, and you don't tell people who you really are. So let's keep that in mind this week as we go forward with this. And one of the things I want you to understand is when we do that shutdown thing, when we do that reel it in thing, when we do that, oh my gosh, I was going to say that, but I'm not going to say that thing, we're creating harm. We're creating harm for that beautiful, tender, fragile being within us that says, why couldn't I express myself just then? Was this environment not safe for me? Are these people not people I can trust? And then that starts to open up an entire tirade of mannerisms and behaviors that do not support us. When we live in the state of comparison, we fall short. No one of us is enough in that situation. We will always find someone who can do it better. And in this situation, we find ourselves wanting and lacking. We are desiring to have something happen, or we find out that there's no way. There's no way for that to be me, for that to be mine. No way at all. And we fall in love with an idea that says, I'm just not good enough. So first we had the concept of fear that gets in the way of being vulnerable, and now we have the idea of comparison, where I'm being measured against someone who isn't even from the same novel that I was birthed into. Doesn't make any sense when you put it that way, does it? Mark Nepo tells us, the sweetness of living comes to us when the very humanness we regret and try to hide our seeming, let me say that again, sorry. The sweetness of living comes to us when the very humanness we regret and try to hide our seeming flaws and shameful secrets are worked by time and nature into a honey all their own. Ultimately, it is where we are not perfect, where we are broken, where we are cracked, where the wind whistles through. That's the stuff of transformation. Oh my gosh. Let me crack open. Let me allow not only the wind to whistle through my being, but the light to shine in and shine through. Let me choose this for my life. When we compare ourselves to others, we refuse to take risk. Everyone's going to be watching me. Everyone's going to be measuring me. Everyone's going to be evaluating me. And when we do that, we can't step out there and be our true selves. The instinct is often to take stock of the people in the room, gauge our self-expression on how we would rank ourselves among them, and then decide what to do. I'm not just talking to me. I know this for a fact. We've all done this. Walked into an event, walked into a business meeting, walked into a party, a celebration, walked into a wedding ceremony, and started looking around the room at the people that we think we can possibly relate to and the people that we absolutely cannot. I did this for years. I based my evaluations on how they were dressed, how their hair looked, who they seemed to be with. Did they look like people who were at a different stature than me, possibly? And then finally one day I got to the place of, I'm going to walk in the room, talk to every darn person in the room, we'll just see what happens. And it was the best party I'd ever been to. Or whatever it was. I'm sure it was a party. I made it a party. So what we want to do is we want to breathe in that reassurance that we are God's own. God brought me here. And God didn't bring me here to go sit quietly in the corner. God brought me here to show up, to be exactly who I am. What this is equivalent to in many arenas is the idea of playing small. I used to think that I should be quiet, which was really hard for me. But anyway, we won't go into that. I used to think I had to be really quiet and let the people in the room who were maybe more hesitant to speak up. I'll just give them a shot. And then someone came to me one time and said, why didn't you share what you were going to share in that meeting? And I'm like, well, I wanted to give everybody a chance. And that's when the individual said to me, so you decided to play small? And that was the first time I'd heard that. And I thought, oh my gosh. Here I think I'm being gracious. I'm allowing you an opportunity to be who you are. And what I was doing in that was I was reeling myself in and not allowing me to be who I truly am. So let's look at this week. Are there times and spans within your week, in your day, in your life, where you're holding back, where you're limiting your expression, where you're playing a little bit smaller than maybe you need to or should? I found a story by Glennon Doyle from her book, Untamed. And I love this story. She's talking about during a time in her life when she was beginning to realize that the authentic person that she wasn't the person whose life she was living. She was in the decision-making process of whether or not to leave her marriage because she realized that there were a whole lot of things that were going on there that were not supporting her and were not supporting her husband and her kids. And of course, as children would be, at that same exact time, her two daughters decided they needed to have their ears pierced, and it was an urgent situation. And so they were bugging her about getting their ears pierced while she's trying to evaluate her entire life. So she decided that it was probably a good idea to take the girls to the mall and allow them to get their ears pierced. So her daughter, Emma, was her youngest. And when they got to the mall, Emma ran ahead of her and her daughter, Tish, ran all the way down to the kiosk where they pierce ears, jumped on the chair as soon as she got there and said, okay, I'm here, let's do this. And the 20-something-year-old woman who worked there is looking around for a mom. And when Glennon came up to the kiosk, the woman said, is this your daughter? And she said, well, I'm trying to be her mother right now, but yes. And the woman said, so do we want to do one ear at a time, or do we want to do both ears? And Amma said, oh my gosh, I'm here, let's do it. Let's do them both right now. And she took a deep breath, and she squinched her face shut, and she grabbed the arms of the chair, and she braced herself. And they pierced her ears. And when the process was taking place, you could see a little tear kind of running down her cheek, and she just kind of brushed it away. And then she was done, and she was excited. She jumped out of the chair, and she's like, okay, Tish, it's your turn. Tish was a couple years older. She didn't like what she was seeing. She leaned over to her mom, and she said, you know, I don't think this is the day for me to do this. And Glennon said, that's fine. Not a problem. Unfortunately, that piece of conversation did not include the woman who worked in the kiosk. So she turned to Tish and said, okay, it's your turn. Get up here. Let's get this done. And Tish said, I'm just not comfortable with this today, and I don't think I'm going to do this. And then the woman said to her, oh, come on, you're braver than that, right? And her sister said, come on, Tish, you only live once. When Tish said back to her sister, why does everyone say that when they're about to do something really dangerous? How about you only live once, so don't get dead early? How about we say it that way? And then she looked back at her mother and she said, I'm sure, I'm not going to do this. So they gathered their things together and they left. But the thing that stuck with Glennon was the comments that the woman who worked at the kiosk had said to her daughter. How she had made comments about how brave Amma was, and oh my gosh, and she's your little sister, and oh my gosh, almost like, what is wrong with you? And she was very annoyed about that. And here's what Glennon goes on to share with us in her book. I don't think being brave means what we've been saying that it means. We tell our children that being brave means feeling afraid and doing it anyway. But is this the definition that we want them to carry as they grow older? When she is 17 years old and she's headed out in a car driven by a teenage friend, and she tells me she's going to the movies when really she's going to a kegger, and I say to her, bye, babe, be brave tonight. What I'm really saying is if you're in a scary situation and you feel afraid to do what your friends are doing, I want you to ignore that and do it anyway. Is that what we're telling our kids? When that inner mechanism shows up, you know, that inner thing, that thing we call intuition kicks in, and somebody tries to help us disregard it, is that what we want for our children? She said, I do not want my children to become people who abandon themselves to please the crowd. She gives us this quote, sometimes being brave means letting everyone down but yourself. That's interesting. Being brave means in every uncertain moment, turning inward, feeling for the knowing, and then speaking it out loud. That's brave. That's courage. Whether you are brave or not cannot be judged by someone outside of you. Sometimes being brave requires letting the crowd think you're a coward. But you know the truth. Amma's brave, according to her mother, is loud and go for it, while Tish's brave is quiet and waiting for it. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. What a beautiful, beautiful idea. They are both brave girls because they've both been taught to be true to themselves. Each and every one of us has been taught to some degree to be true to ourselves. We've been taught to embrace that idea of who we are and to honor it and to support it. And when we feel bad, like really bad, is when we discount that, when we discredit it, when we forget that we were supposed to be taking care of us first. Gabby Bernstein gives us this quote. We're often afraid of being vulnerable, but vulnerability creates genuine connection. Now I'm just going to give you a side note here for a second. For many, many years in my early lifespan, I discovered that something really curious happened when I was getting to know someone. Whether it was someone at school, whether it was a guy, a date, whatever, I began to notice over the years that for the first couple of weeks, as we interacted, we would find out that we had so much in common. It was just such a great relationship. We were so connected. We'd known each other in past lives. We said all that crazy stuff. But I started to discover that something happened between the 3rd month and the 6th month of our connection. And people that I was getting to know and getting close to began to change. They began to show me a part of themselves that I had not seen before. And I couldn't quite figure this out. And then it came to me. When we step into a new relationship, when we step into a situation where we're kind of not comfortable, we buffer who we are. We adjust how we are. And the truth is, we can't stay in that zone very long. Eventually, the true being starts to come forth. The more we get comfortable with the people we are interacting with, the more we get comfortable with whoever it is we're dating or talking to on the phone all the time, the more the real self starts to come forth. And I don't know that people were trying to hide that so much as we had been taught to condition who we are. So the ability to be vulnerable and authentic can be seen sometimes in the manner of, are you fearful to get to know me? There's another way that it shows up. It shows up through the lens of privilege. When we look at the lens of privilege, there are individuals who believe that everything and everyone needs to show up a certain way. And if you don't fit that mold, if you don't fit into that category the way I want you to, then there's something wrong. There's something wrong with you, and you need to reel that in. We see that everywhere today, and the reason I point that out to us this afternoon is because this is the work that we're here to do, to support these people, to support these individuals who are not of privilege and who are struggling to be their true selves and don't deserve to be compared to others and minimized and limited and discounted and disregarded. When we understand fear, uncertainty, and comparison, what happens is we don't have to avoid those things. We don't have to pretend they don't exist. Instead, we get to see their presence in our lives as a beacon, giving us an opportunity to look closer into the microscope of our lives and see how these things serve us and support us. This is a close-up view that we can begin the work of removing the barriers of vulnerability and a life that we can truly live out loud. What a perfect world. What a perfect world that can be. So, my friends, what does this mean to us today? What does it mean to move through the fear, the uncertainty, and the comparison? What does it mean to be able to just show up and be vulnerable? To have the courage, the faith, if you will, to be ourselves. Today, many people in the world are looking at today as a day of renewal. The idea of resurrection is very prominent on the lips and minds of many, many, many people today. We are at the onset of spring, whether it looks like it in Colorado or not. And what spring does is it brings forth newness. It brings forth renewal. It springs forth living, breathing beauty. Let's do that. Let's bring ourselves out of that dormancy from winter and that downtime that we may have taken and where we didn't go anywhere as often as maybe we wanted to, simply because of the very fact that it was too darn cold. And there was a lot of snow out there, at least for me, a couple of times. And let's think about that. And let's consider for a moment the story that we've heard in the New Testament scriptures about the man Jesus, the teacher. And Jesus was an amazing teacher, and he was only one of many teachers that have taught us to show up, to be who we are. And what we were taught in the example of the resurrection is that God is changeless and life is eternal. That's the message that we get to take with us. We can move away from that fear. We can move away from that comparison. We can create the perfect path for each one of us in our own individual lives. We have the right, we have the power, and deep within each of us, there is a spark. It's called the dream. We have the dream. Let us keep in mind when there is change or loss, we grieve. We take time to let it go. And what happens in the letting go is we begin to discover something new, something beautiful. You may not think of it as a rising up, but that's exactly what's taking place. We have the opportunity to come forward, to rise up every day. So this week, let us embrace the Christ consciousness that's within us as we take bold new steps. Don't you think you owe it to yourself? Don't you think it's time, if you haven't already, to look inside of you? Isn't it time to stand and face the fire? To look into the sun and claim your heart's desire? This week, we are prompted and encouraged to move into the direction of our dreams. In the Aramaic translation of the last words Jesus said from the cross, it is said that he spoke these words, "It is for this purpose I have come." What purpose are you here for? Why have you come? Why are you here? It is time for us to make that mission, that purpose complete, to take the steps, to stand strong, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, claim our destiny, and move in the direction of our dreams. Please pray with me. As we just take a moment and allow reflection for the words that have been spoken, the music that has come to us, the connection, the conversations, all of this, we allow this to be part of our truth, of our reality, and we know right here and right now that God is. God is present here. God is in of and through all things. God is the guide and the support for each of us. We get to make the choices, and Spirit supports us in all of it. And so what I know today, right here and right now, that each and every one of us finds the strength, the power, and the courage to show up and be vulnerable, to be true to ourselves, to be that amazing being we were created to be in all expressions of life. How perfect this is, how amazing it feels to know that we have this right, that we are grounded in the very essence of that presence of God. We cannot fail. And so I know today that all people everywhere, all faiths, all ideas, all mindsets, people from all backgrounds, all walks of life are blessed by God. That very God that I call God, that one being, that one power, lives within each and every one of them, and it is alive within me, alive within each of us in this room and everyone online, always in all ways. How reassuring that is, how beautiful that is, and how grateful I am. And so I simply give thanks, blessing all people everywhere, today and every day, knowing life is good and perfect and true, and that we are all one with the divine, and we are grateful, 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 not only for that truth of our being, but also for the very ability to step into prayer and to speak and affirm our truth. It's good. It's all God, and it's already done in the mind of God, so we just let it go. We let it go and we let it be as together we say, and so it is.
Do you think you owe it to yourself to look inside of you and take the time to realize what you are here to do? Don't you think the time has finally come to stand and face the fire, to walk into the blazing sun and claim your heart's desire? You were placed upon this earth with a mission to complete. And now the time has come to stand up strong and claim your destiny. You must move in the direction of your dreams and act as if they've already come true. For even when there is no hope, so it seems, move in the direction of your dream. Don't you think that you're not good enough to be a shining star? Or do you think because the road gets tough that you won't get that far? Do you believe that only some are great and others left for chance? Or maybe that it's just too late, a futile circumstance? You were placed upon this earth with a mission to complete. And now the time has come to stand up strong and claim your destiny. You must move in the direction of your dreams and act as if they've already come true. For even when there is no hope, so it seems, move in the direction of your dreams. And when the world feels like it's crashing all around you, and the clouds of doubt are darkening your day, then just be still and know that there's something deep within you that will always, always know the way. You must move in the direction of your dreams, act as if they've already come true. For even when there is no hope, or so it seems, move in the direction of your dreams. Move in the direction of your dreams.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.